Hello again, Ancestry cousins and inquiring minds. This video is about my raper family out of Jamestown, North Carolina. Now, we're going to start off with the DNA. So, it's a cold raper connection. The family intermarried 4 people, so they'll come up mixed up in the tree. Like my great-great-grandfather will come up as my great-great-grand-uncle because of those 4 intermarriages with the Coles and the Rapers. So the Coles actually lived, some of them lived in High Point, Jamestown, North Carolina, right down the road from one another. And in this area of Guilford County, there was basically you're in the middle of living around a bunch of Quakers. That's going to be about a different story. Very interesting. So this DNA, I found my second great grandfather, Wyatt Presley Raper, and his mother, Alice Raper, in the will of William Raper Jr. So it was actually, at one point, it was online as a printed copy. Someone had a website. When they had that website up, I printed it out and put it in my little bins. So when that website went down, I had it. So I didn't have to always read cursive. So what you will have, the online version, is cursive. So what I say to people, when you find something like that online, because websites go down, save it, print it, however you have to do it, because websites go down. Okay, because they have to be maintained and be paid. So about the will. So I noticed that someone had saved some of my stuff to their tree. And I pay attention to that. Like, who is this, So I go in and I see that, he has Hiram Raper in his tree. And Hiram Raper was actually on the will too. So I message him. This is how you get information from people in Ancestry now. I would rather give him my number and we have a phone conversation and I can have my pen and paper or pencil or paper and write it down so I could get as much information as I can and we could correspond, because messaging, it takes a long time because they may read the email or they may not read the email. You know how many unanswered messages I have on Ancestry. Anyway, he responded and he told me that his grandmother had tested positive with one of my cousins that I actually test positive with. So he said that he said that his grandmother actually had a 14 centimorgan match to my cousin Oscar, who I have a higher match to. Now, I will say this. I know, because I've seen this over and over again from my mother. My mother and I both tested DNA. So as I said in the earlier video, I think my mother got like 22,000 and I have 26 or something like that. It's a big difference because by the time her DNA, mine is 22,269 and hers is 28,183. Now what ends up happening is by the time it gets down to me, the centimorgan is so low that it's not shown. So what I do is I go to my mother's. I use hers more than mine because I'm looking for more ancestors on her side of the family. So I know that tracing it down, by the time it gets to me, there's a 6,000, almost 6,000 cousin difference between my mother and I. Now I know that some of these matches would be from my father, some of these are from my mother, but still a lot of the cousin matches that my mother has on, that she matches with, by the time it gets to me, is gone. So with that being said, I know that this gentleman is my cousin, and it actually helped to say, okay, so I didn't know. 1870, you got Grandma Alice and Granddaddy Raper, Wyatt, living in Jamestown, and like you don't know anything like where they came from. Well, I knew where they came from. They came from Davidson County because my family already had that information together. So they had a little bit of information, but then, they didn't have the information that Alice had a sister or she had siblings. And those people on that will was her siblings. So getting in contact and messaging this person that saved my information on his tree helped me to branch out. So my grandma Alice now has sisters and brothers. Didn't really make a difference. I mean, I wish that maybe we could go to down there and eventually find a mother, but right now I'm not, unless I have a lot of information that I'm looking for, to go there and spend like a day or two to go through the records. I don't want to go all the way back to High Point or in that area to for just a quick trip to check one person. I need to have several things that I'm going to check when I go back down there, because that was not a short drive. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that trip. I do have a video from way back from when I went down there and I went to the Turner Cemetery, and I was so overjoyed to find, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a plethora of coals in this cemetery. So if you pay attention to who's saving stuff in your tree, don't discount or disregard that, think completely that you may not be connected to a person because you don't have a DNA match. I want to say something else about those DNA matches too. I have in my Johnson line, I wasn't sure whether my grandfather Cleon Johnson was my grandfather, because looking at his relationship with my grandmother, seeing kind of, he's not consistently living with them on the census, because I told you, I think I had said, I think it was 1917, I found newspaper articles and stuff that he was sentenced to go to jail for joyride. And in 1920, he was in Fairfax County. I found that on the census. So that's 100%. So probably that same year he got out, and then, my grandmother and him made up or whatever, and then they had children. So, but I didn't know whether he was really my grandfather, because I was like, I done been through so much with this blood ties, love lies thing. So it's like, oh, okay. So when I had a cousin that came up and he was showing the DNA connection, and his name was Johnson. And so I reached out to him and I asked him, he didn't have much in his tree. And I asked him about it, and he said, yeah, he told me his mother's name, and he told me his grandfather's name was Lorraine. Lorraine was my grandfather Cleon's brother. And so I made that connection to him on that, with that DNA connection, but he didn't put stuff right on his tree. So it doesn't show up as a true through lines connection, because when you put that stuff right in your tree, that ancestry through lines will put that DNA sign there. You don't have to put it there. So then on the other end of the spectrum, I got a hit from a cousin that I was like, okay, so I went in, she just came up, boom. Like when I came back on Ancestry, I was saying I was going to take a whole year off, because I just wasn't getting that, that information flowing like that. And I said I was just going to search newspapers and use my library card and just save the stuff that I find later on. So what ended up happening is Ancestry put this big sale up, and I was like, oh crap, I'm on. So I had to get back on there. I couldn't pass that up. It's like, ooh, that's a big sale. So when I came back, I had a new cousin, and I looked at her tree and was like, oh, wait a minute. She had bird on her. I ain't gonna say it like that. So anyway, based on that information that she had, I went in and searched for the obits to match the stuff she had on her tree, and messaged her and said, I have this stuff, and she was like, oh, that's so great. That's wonderful. Thank you. I didn't have this information, appreciative. And she added it on her tree. So it made that through line from her come up, but the other cousin that didn't do it right, it didn't come up right, but I added it on. So it's my own through lines connection. And so, but those through lines, I could, if you go onto you can't go into that tree and look at the through lines, but when you put everybody on the census in your tree, this helps with the through lines. So this, the DNA match, if it does not come up as a DNA match for you, but they came up as a DNA match for somebody like your mother, then you would know. That's yours. They are your people. So that wheel had all of the people that were connected to via the rapers. And it did say that they didn't want the children sold out of the family, even though when William Raper died, he, dispersed his slaves among his family. But he said he didn't want his Negroes. One was Presley, because my grandfather's name was Wyatt Presley Raper, and Hiram, and another one named Lynn, Lin, that he had wrote on the road. I could not find him. So, and then it had Cynthia, Alice, James. They were all being dispersed about the different family members. So when I found that will, I had actually asked another genealogist about it, but she's working on a raper line. And so she said no. But I was like, yeah, it is. It is. I'm 100% sure. The odds was just too no. And I've had that will for a long time. So again, don't totally discount that they may not be your DNA cousins because you don't have a match to them, because the centimorgans could be too low. Keep it in your tree or keep it on the side. Keep it in your sources. I can't remember the name of that thing anyway. And thanks for watching.